No countdown?
No countdown, we're straight in.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, for the latest edition of the Gwladys Beat Podcast. You're here with me, Scott. We've got Nick making a great return after a while out, and we've got Mike joining us as well.
Right, Scott.
Right, so this is going to be probably one of our more difficult ones we've done. At the moment, it all seems like doom and gloom, especially if you were actually at the game the weekend. But it is what it is, and you know we might as well get straight in there. I've got my own opinion. I'm sure you have too. So, if Mike, you want to start, tell us what you think, what you're expected, and we'll go from there.
Well, I think there's been enough said about it over Twitter over the weekend, and the fallout's been quite resounding. I think most of the fans are along the same lines of thinking, you know, there's nothing that I think I can throw out here which is going to be groundbreaking, but it's just, I think the thing that really upset me the most was the manner of the defeat. I haven't seen, it felt almost like this season we're starting to gain a little bit of an identity, and I think one of the things that people were taking a little bit of solace in was getting those players like your Townsends, your Grays back in, you know, and Decore was fighting in the midfield with Alan. And it almost felt like we were past the days of those complete capitulations where it looks like no one's bothered and everyone's head just goes. And so to just have one of them so soon after what has been quite a good start of the season, it was the defeat to West Ham was quite sobering, but you could take it because effectively I think they're probably on a similar level to us. And then to play Watford, which should just be an easy 3 points, and make such an absolute hash of it in the most Everton way possible as well. just brought us, I think it just brought everyone back down to earth with a massive bang, didn't it?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it was one of those, I think, you know, as Mike said, I think, you know, the bringing Rafa in and the kerfuffle that was going on around the time and people, some probably just waiting for the first opportunity. He'd done a great job. He'd got us settled in. He'd got us really good and got us playing. And as Mike said, you know, we were solid. We were getting performances out of what we still all know, and we're maybe drag into it a little bit, is still not a good squad for the 500 million that we've spent. But he was starting to get a tune out of us. I have to say, at some point, I thought we'd get battering because he was getting probably more than he probably should have done, if that makes sense, out of some of them players, and was getting performances that you sort of thought at some point we will get a kicking. But you tended to think it would be your Chelseas or you didn't bloody think it was going to be Watford, that's for sure. And that was the problem. The pressure was probably on us because after Liverpool had beaten them 5-0, everyone was coming in going, well, if they beat them 5-0, we're going to win this. And at 2-1, I still thought we would. You know, they weren't a good team. Watford, that's the annoying thing. They weren't good. It was just, wow, that last 12 minutes or something was just unbelievably bad.
Well, do you know what? I can't say I disagree because I do. From my experience from where I was sat, I think they started really well. I think from the get-go, they did look hungrier, but I sort of, when Davis nicked that goal, I thought, this is it. We'll settle down and we'll just outplay these. And it just never really happened for me. I think when you said there about them getting beat 5-0 the week before, my little boy said to me, I always give him a mention if he's watching what's happening. I said to him, you know what, everyone thinks it's going to be an easy game, but most people with any knowledge will know if you're playing a team that's been thumped 5-0, they'll have been absolutely slaughtered on the training ground. And they'll know that that's not acceptable. So it was never going to be easy, even though I know it should. Rafa made a mistake. He actually said it should be an easy routine win or whatever he said before the game. Yeah, and do you know what? There was one thing that's done it for me. I'd been at the kids' footy all morning. So my little boy's training. My eldest lad had a match. Then us two came home. He could wash the mud off him. We had our brekkie and we were watching Football Focus. And it went live with Guy Mowbray. I think it was Guy Mowbray to Goodison Park. And you know, the very first thing he said was, Watford haven't ever won at Goodison. And I said to him, we might as well not go. So we might, honestly, I thought, wow, this is going to be, like, when Mike said the most Everton way possible, I sort of thought, this is it. But you know what, mate, when you said like Rafa was getting a tune out of us, I think you're absolutely spot on, and he was. And it's sort of, for that 12 minutes, everything that's looked so good, the defensive organisation, the way everyone was fighting, once they got the equaliser, it was just like, wow. And the reaction when Gray and Iwobi come off, Gray and Gordon come off,
I
think everybody's seen it, and at that point, you sort of think, he's not going to take Gordon off. I don't know about you guys, but at that point in the game, Rondon had done absolute zero for me. And I mean, I didn't think he'd done a single thing. I think the game before, he only got like the one header, what he just sort of flicked past the post. And, you know, the obvious thing for me, just get the Charlison on. I think he was playing Gray up front anyway, wasn't he? Like a 4-4-4. Was it a 4-4-1-1? I think he was playing, sort of. And I just thought, when he took them so off, I thought, wow, Gordon had been working his socks off, good attacking threat, getting forward, getting back, really putting a shift in, and sort of, you know, trying to drag a display out of everyone else. And there was just too many for me, mate, that just looked, you know, mate, I don't want to just be negative. You might have to tell me to shut up.
The thing that I sort of, I do agree. Obviously, I think Rondon has been like playing with 10 men for the past 2 weeks, and I think he knows it himself. You can see by his reaction when he's always constantly 2 yards off the ball. And I know from recently trying to get back into footy that it's the most frustrating thing ever when you know where you want to be, but your body can't get you there. But surely that translates to the management as well, and they can see that. So I can understand fully Dobbin might not be ready, he's only a kid and all of that, but he's literally pointless having on the pitch at that period of time. Surely, I think you said when they equalised, we looked all over the place. I think as soon as Richarlison scored, to be honest, we looked, you know, like we were hanging on there with 20 minutes to go or whatever it was. And for me, if you can't throw Holgate or Gbamin into that midfield to make it a 3 in there and just put Richarlison up front, I don't see what the point of having Gbamin anywhere near the squad is. I know it's impossible to get rid of him because he's constantly injured, but there was a lot of things tactically you could have done there which weren't just throwing Iwobi left mid and, you know, keeping it 4-4-2 with Richarlison up top. I've spoken to a few of my red mates and they said, you know, he used to make ridiculous decisions at Liverpool substitution-wise, but sometimes they pay off, and you think, one of them was talking the other day about when he took Gerrard off in a derby and brought a young Lucas Leiva on who eventually won a pen against us, apparently. I mean, I've obviously wiped it from my mind, but, you know, they said that was their bugbear with him. And so to expect more of the same, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. But during this period of time, he's just got to keep the fans on board, hasn't he? I think personally, because it's still fragile.
Yeah, I mean that you're right. He's got to play the percentage games for a while. I mean, similar to you, I've spoken to a few Red friends who've said he's quite a stubborn manager as well, and that's my concern. I think he's brought Rondon in because he likes having some kind of target man or a big guy up there to play out from. He seems to think that allows maybe his defensive tactics if you need to launch it up. Now, it worked with DCL. I mean, first game of the season at Leeds, it was a pretty similar setup, but it works when you've got a tall striker that's a willing runner. What you've got there is a tall striker who doesn't get off the deck and isn't going to make the runs. You know, there's the last couple of games, you spot on, Mike. There's balls that have gone across the centre of that box that have been beautiful balls in, and he's 3 yards behind play. But I do worry just a little bit that Rafa's a bit stubborn. And I think that whole thing then on Saturday reflects that. He wasn't going to take Rondon off because that's the way he wanted to play. So he was then looking for alternatives. So what's the easiest way? Yeah, Gordon shouldn't have gone off. I agree with you. He was having a great game. He was worrying them because he was the only one running with the ball, picking it up and running with the ball. But he got away with it because, okay, Richarlison came on and scored the goal. It was the second one for me, taking Gray off, because that was your last attacking option that you had on the pitch. Yeah. And you took that off for the negativity of bringing Iwobi in. You know, we could spend hours on Iwobi, and we have done previously on this podcast. I think we
both know the stands on Iwobi.
Absolutely. So I won't bore the listeners with that again. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know what you're going to get with Iwobi, and you probably didn't even get what you hoped you would get out of him. But the whole thing was, you're right, I think Rafa was going, I know how I like to play. I'm going to sit on this 2-1 now because that probably should be able to do it. And I'm leaving my target man as an option out. And it was wrong. It just went wrong, didn't it? And I think that's probably the beginning of the end for us.
It is. Do you know what? You touched there on about keeping the fans on board, right? I don't know if it was you or Mike just said. But can you imagine if instead of taking Gray off and putting Iwobi on, if he takes Ronson on and you see that Zobban pulling his shirt on, the crowds would have went mad for it. And instead, as soon as they heard Iwobi, seeing Iwobi step up, I don't know if you heard, but I heard a big chorus of boos when he made that decision. And that speaks for itself. Like sometimes it is the stubbornness, because if everybody who watches that game can see it, what's he seeing? What's he seeing that way or not? Because to be honest, I don't like Ronson. I don't think he's what we need, but he's what we've got. But he seems isolated up there when he was playing with Gray. But I did notice when he brought the Richarlison on, Ronson did look a bit busier. And I think he actually won a header once Richarlison come on. So maybe that might benefit him playing with a proper out-and-out striker. But I'm just trying to pull something negative, positive, really. And it is quite hard. I think, though, for me, I think Townsend was trying his best. Gordon was trying his best. Even I think Alan was trying, but I think Alan looked off the pace as well, because it just seemed like there was nothing in midfield, really.
I think the other thing, Scott, is, sorry, Mike, I was going to ask you. I mean, he probably, we talk about Iwobi, and yeah, most of us as fans scratch our heads, but with a few of his selections, he must see them week in, week out at training, mustn't he? So he must be going through sessions, planning sessions of how you're going to approach it. And maybe he sees different things to us that, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, the reality of it is that, you can say throw Dobbin on and things like that, but Dobbin's a 17-year-old kid who's only played a handful of 21 games, whereas Alex Iwobi's got 70-odd caps for Nigeria and played in a UEFA Cup final. So I understand people saying you can't be worse. Dobbin can't be worse than Iwobi. Look at his performances. But ultimately, the fact of the matter is, generally, you're a proven Premier League player for a reason. You've got that many appearances because you can be worse than that. Ultimately, you look at
you can, but if you had that attitude with Michael Owen, he'd have never skinned Argentina and buried it when he was 17.
Yeah.
You've got to give them a chance, or you never know. Like Iwobi might have all that. Would you play him against Wolves on Monday night?
Oh no. I wouldn't play any of them though. I'd just forfeit.
No, I know he's only a young kid. Look at Rooney, Wayne Rooney. The L's and back until he was chomping at the bit, burst onto the scene. One of the best ever for England in the Prem. I've said it now since I've been on the podcast. I am a big advocate for, if somebody's not doing it, play someone else, because they need to know you can't just have that place. Like that, it shouldn't just be a given that you're starting or you're getting brought on. Like I'd be huge. I'm sick of saying it. I'm sure anyone who listens sick of hearing me saying it, but you've got to give these kids a chance. Like you've just got to. I mean, if you go to all and you've got 20 minutes left, and Ronson barely has a touch of the ball, and you've got two strikers on the bench, Sims and Zobban. I just don't get it.
It's a dangerous one, though, Scott, isn't it? It is a dangerous one because you're exposing the kids at a time when the fans are, I don't say aggressive, that's probably the wrong word to use, restless. Try restless. And I agree with you. You're always going to get the Rooney, the Michael Owen that will come on and just completely steal the show. But we could have lost a couple as well. I mean, you look at Calvert-Lewin 18 months ago. Twitter was calling him fit to burn, get rid of him, he's a bloody championship player, and, we could have lost him. And then, okay, he's come back. There's a few more have gone that way. Over the years, I've seen quite a few sort of sudden child proteges come into Everton and played 3 games and never seen them again. So you you've got to be a special type of person. Now, I agree with you, so I'm probably arguing with myself. You're not going to know till you put them on the pitch. But I also, as a bit of a cautionary guy, is going, yeah, I see it. I'd admit, I was there on Saturday going, bloody hell, Dobbin can't do any worse than Rondon the last 15 minutes. But it is a difficult one. And I suppose the only thing you've got to give is credit to Benitez. If he doesn't think they're ready, he's not putting them in.
But what would have got you cheering more out your seat? Iwobi on the touchline getting ready to come on, or Dobbin?
Yeah, I give you that, but that would have been my bitter blue head as opposed to my sensible tactical approach to some degree. And and we split ourselves in the middle. That's the lovely thing about going to football, isn't it? It's the ability to be playing stupid in your thinking against your logic. Sorry, Mike. Go on.
No, the only thing I always think, oh, it's great, seeing the kids get on and that. But it was like I always remember that Chelsea game a few years ago where we just signed Besic. And we brought him on, and with his first switch, he tried to do a little back heel and conceded the goal. And it was just, you don't want to do that to you don't want to expose a 17-year-old kid coming through to that sort of trauma, to be honest. But yeah, I would prefer to see him than either Rondon or Iwobi, to be honest. I think both of them have had the chance, and they don't offer anything. So I completely understand that. But I also know how fickle we can be as fans, and how quickly, after 2 or 3 games where he hasn't touched the ball, or you're sort of saying, how's he anywhere near the first team, when in reality probably shouldn't be at this moment in time.
Yeah. It is a hard one, and it's not the best environments. I think sort of Rooney came into a reasonable team, but hey, we can lay the history books out. Time will tell. I'm sure he'll get his chance. I'm sure he will. I mean, sadly, if we hadn't messed up with the penalties at QPR, he might well have been getting a start this week and then against Sunderland in the cup. But unfortunately, we missed the penalty when we're out, aren't we? But that was a loss, because that probably was the opportunity to rebuild. Now you've got to go on to a game that we'll talk about in a little bit later. So where are we going? Where did it go wrong then? We've pretty much identified the subs weren't the best. It put us on the back foot. I'll start the bidding, because there's another bugbear of mine is zonal marking. I think it's wrong. I think it's rubbish, and it doesn't work. It never worked with Silva, and I think Rafa's getting this wrong. I don't see it as, I'm not a coach of Rafa's level, but you just look at it. You're flat-footed. Our defenders are flat-footed in zones. That guy just ran into the box and got a good yard above everybody with a free header. I don't know what you guys think, but it drives me mad, zonal marking, and I'm worried on corners all the time.
Come on. For me and yourself, Nick, I don't know if Mike's got any experience, but you go from grassroots right the way up. You start at 5v5, you go through all the way up to 11v11. There's enough players on the pitch for everybody to mark a man. And if you mark your man properly, you shouldn't have them free headers. Like you say, there's no marking. You're stood static while players are running in. They've got the momentum. You've got absolutely no chance unless you're got top world-class defenders, which, we've got some good defenders, but it doesn't work. We've had this for a long time. We're susceptible to dead balls, and it could be corners coming in. It could be crosses getting thrown in off a free kick. But it just looks so weak, mate. And Michael Keane, he got bullied by Josh King there. Even not just the dead balls, he got bullied every ball coming over the top. It was woeful, and he's a big lad. You watch to be saying what Burnley did. It was, wasn't it? And he used to clear up everything. Everything. And now to me, he looked petrified. Look, Pet didn't want to play the ball. It took the momentum out of everything. Every single time he got the ball, he went straight back to Pickford. And then Pickford's distribution was awful. I mean, more kicks that game he put straight out than I've ever seen before. I think I counted about 5 before I stopped caring. So for me, where it went wrong was you've not got that confidence at the back. You miss it. It's sort of like there was no leader. And the referee was off, mate. I don't think the referee changed the game, but the referee was absolutely woeful. And normally Seamus would be over there arguing, and he was a couple of times, but there was a few where he just sat back, like he didn't want to get involved. And I think, if you're not up to that position as leader, you need someone out there who is. And I think we were missing that. Someone no one was holding people accountable when it was going wrong. Why weren't the players saying to Michael Keane, for Christ's sake, play it forward. Play forward, run 10 yards, and someone will close you down, and then you've got space to play it forward. Just basic stuff. Just basic stuff went wrong for me.
Was it just Michael Keane though, Mike? I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Scott, and I thought Keane had a good game the week before against Antonio, who was a difficult man to mark. Keane has always been a confidence player for me. If he's got the right people around him, he excels. For what worries me is Ben Godfrey. He's not the player we bought 12 months ago. I know he's at the COVID.
He was all over the show.
He was missed a couple of sort of times his marking went to the pieces. So I'm not sure it was right across the whole back four. What do you reckon, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's easy to look at Keane, isn't it? Because we've had years of looking at Keane and thinking that. And don't get me wrong, for large parts of that last 12 minutes, he was an absolute shambles. I mean, I've never seen someone commit so hard to a tackle where he never seems to win than Michael Keane, who just goes swinging into them. Yeah. But, I mean, Luca Dean has got to look at himself as well for the last few weeks, if not the whole season. Defensively, he's been the amount of times he's been absolutely skinned and had to bring someone down or, just let the man go. There was one in the second half where he just danced past him to the byline and Pickford saved. It was like King should have had 4 in reality because he ended up having a shot from about 4 yards out right in front of me, in front of the park end, which Pickford saved. And Dean sort of put his hand up to Pickford as if to thank him because he'd just been absolutely rinsed. It was the lot of them, to be honest. And as you say, Godfrey, there was always that concern over his positioning, I think, and probably his defensive intuition, if you will, which all the great centre halves tend to have. He always looked like a bit of a fullback or centre mid playing centre half, but he had the athleticism to make up for it. But since COVID, he looks a little bit slower, a little bit more lethargic, and I think that's just you're seeing that now because he hasn't got that recovery pace that he did have. So and we knew as soon as Decore was injured that was a huge part of our midfield. So I was absolutely amazed that we didn't go to a 3 in midfield, to be honest, 5 basically. But to play 4-4-2 without Decore, who's probably covered, I haven't checked the stats, but I imagine is covered by far the most ground. I know has made the most tackles and interceptions. And, he's just been that number 8, which has been basically doing Alan's running for him and letting Alan just do the nitty gritty stuff. So without him, you need 3 in the midfield. I think as soon as you saw that 4-4-2, it always looked like we would struggle at some point in the game.
No, I agree with you. I mean, we all, like you say, we're probably telling people everything they already knew. Decore was going to be such a miss, but the magnitude of the way we missed him on Saturday, you're right. And again, is there a little bit of managerial stubbornness there? We're going to play my way because, like most people, I felt sorry for Tom Davies. He's been the butt of everybody for the last 12 months. And the kid's got something, but, to get the goal, you thought, right, come on, this is your game, Tom. You're going to, and then literally he just reversed himself out of the game and he went back to the Tom Davies that's been people are critical of. But I'm not sure that it was totally his fault. I think you're right. Alan needs somebody to do his running for him to excel. He didn't have it. Tom Davies is not the box-to-box player that Gabanin allegedly is. When we signed Gabanin, you look at some of the write-ups in sort of the German football magazines, and they said we've got a steal for 25 million. He's the old box-to-box player. So you're right. Why wasn't he there? Maybe not fit if he hasn't seen him. I don't know. But it just didn't gel together. And with that, the whole sort of confidence of the side completely disintegrated. And then sadly, Tom does his normal stuff. I think it was the 3rd goal, 4th maybe. But we have a few people. He bottled out of a tackle, didn't he, in the centre mid, and he broke through and scored, and everyone was onto him then. That's what you get. That's what you get. Here we go. Yeah, it was probably just the same problems we've seen with players. We saw it all in one go.
Yeah.
See, it's hard, and do you know what? I completely agree with you. But I also think I just don't think. I know I said about lead, like when we seem to be missing a leader, and as well as a leader, sometimes you just need a character. And I think without Yerry Mina at the back, like I know people were saying, like, should we keep Yerry? Should we sell him? I just don't think it looks the same without him. I mean, just that presence. I mean, there's no way he'd have got bossed about by Josh King. I know Josh King was on form, but I don't think it'd have been as easy for him. if Yerry was on the pitch, you know, and I think Yerry, maybe Michael Keane's confidence isn't the same when he sees Ben Godfrey next to him. Maybe he needs Yerry Mina next to him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you need that player, maybe just giving you a bit of direction, a little pat on the back when you've done something well. And maybe Ben Godfrey needs that, but Michael Keane can't give it to him, and he can't give it to Michael Keane. I don't know.
I think you take out to the side, obviously, Yerry Mina, Decore, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, possibly our 4 best players. You know, probably put Dean in there under normal circumstances, but with his current form, they're probably the 4 that you'd want to be on the pitch as the first 4 names. But you also consider their aerial ability. You know, Calvert-Lewin in the air, Richarlison came on and won about 3 defensive headers from corners, like instantly. Yerry Mina is about 6'8", and you know Decore is a big fella, isn't he? So losing those 4 is going to affect you, but we don't seem to have actually addressed it at all, despite the fact that we've been woeful taking and conceding set pieces. We haven't looked near getting near one to score, and defensively, every single time they get one, it looks like they're going to score. So for a man who's supposed to be so intricate in his details and leaves no stone unturned like Benitez is, it just seems like such an oversight that it doesn't seem to be getting addressed at all.
No, I agree with you. And that probably brings this sort of question mark of stubbornness back, doesn't it? Really, you know, and I know it's difficult. You know, we managing a side, probably the hardest tactic sometimes is to take your defenders off. You know, and is Holgate any better than what we've got? We really are that struggling that much, aren't we? As what alternatives you've got? You're right. No Mina, you were struggling. Should you put Holgate on? It's difficult because if you're taking Godfrey off, you're probably destroying his confidence all the more doing something like that. So, you know, it wasn't. And I know we said we keep ourselves sort of positive, but I think the real stuff for me was I was going to say Sunday League defending for a couple of goals, but it wasn't even
that good.
It was, you know, the 2 occasions for the 4th and the 5th, I think, where Josh King just dropped the shoulder and Seamus went flying past him for 1 goal and Michael Keane went flying past him for the other. And you're thinking, the minimum you can do is stay on your feet. Come on. That was the stuff that upset me more because that really was bad.
Well, I think maybe talking about Rafa's stubbornness might be perfect to lead us on. Now, do you think that he's going to make any changes for the Wolves game? Is there any changes you guys would make? What would you go for? I mean, I know we probably still have the reckon Yerry Mina is the end of October, start of November, so he's probably not going to be fit. Decore's definitely out. Calvert-Lewin's nowhere near it. Fabian's out November. Gomez sometime in November. So with all them injuries in account, would you potentially change anything, or not? Would just you? Do you think Rafa may make some changes?
I wouldn't be surprised to see Holgate come in. I don't think that Benitez is a massive fan of him, to be honest, from pre-season onwards. But you know, when Keane and Godfrey have a game like that, you could even throw Coleman into the mix as a right back. Any one of those could go, and realistically, unless you're gonna throw Branthwaite in, I don't know where he's at fitness wise at the minute, but I know he was playing for the under-21s fairly recently, and you know, to be honest, I haven't even been looking at the bench. I've just assumed it was 7 keepers for the last few weeks. But you know, if he's been making the bench, you could do worse than Branthwaite. He played the full season on loan last year at Blackburn, pretty much, and even when he stepped immediately up to our first 11, he didn't look particularly.
I thought he looked good, to be fair.
He didn't look out
of place.
No, and so you know, he gives you the height, and I do think to an extent the club, part of the anger at the end of the game was the fact that you just don't know what the direction the club is trying to go in is, and you don't know what we're signing the players towards. We haven't got one single policy. It's just a mishmash of people's ideas, and if you want to revert completely back to, you know, let's sell someone big, you're probably going to have to for financial fair play anyway, and start again with a few of the younger players and just target that sort of ethos of bringing in young players, like a bit like Leicester have, then at least then you've got an identity and you've got a plan. I think at the moment, just bringing in the odd 30-year-old, the odd mid-20s, and a couple of teenagers who you never see in the first team doesn't. What's
See,
that?
do you know what it was like? You know, when we signed Rondon, can any of you will remember how disappointed you were when we signed a 16 stones average Ginola?
I don't know. I think it was that desperate again on transfer deadline for anybody. It was you're instantly doing the Evertonian bit of trying to look at the positives. Well, he had a good season for West Brom about 10 years ago, didn't he? So, it was that kind of thing, wasn't it? You know, oh yeah, don't worry, he's a good signing.
We'd have probably took the actual David Ginola at that point, to be fair, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think Mike's right. I think, you know, the essence of a lot of this, Scott, is we haven't got much to play with. I think so. You probably got to look a little bit at what's in front of you. I think Wolves have picked a bit of form up of late. They've got some good results, albeit late shows when coming back from 2 down at Villa late on, and you know, so they appear to be back to what they were doing when they had Jota, which was playing it quick on the floor, getting in behind. So there's going to be a bit of pace there, which sort of makes you think, well, you're going to have to probably leave Godfrey in there for his pace. So you then go and do you take Keane out or do you leave him for his height? And then you're minimising your options. Holgate's got to come into the thinking of it. But again, I think Benitez, as Michael said, I'm not sure he likes him. Don't think he rates him. And you're probably not going to take Coleman or Luca Dean out to give Holgate a run. So your then thing is, you know, Ferguson got a song out of him in midfield for a couple of games. Are we that desperate to shake the midfield up? But I think Mike alluded to it before, going the sort of the 4-4-1-1 or 4-4-2. I think we're probably going to have to change that. I think you've got to get a little tighter. You've got to stop Wolves playing through you. And I think you've got to get a bit more of the press in to frustrate Wolves. So what team, for me, does that? I think you probably would put one more man in midfield, but then it brings his challenge up. He's then, you know, Rondon as a striker. My word, really?
Yeah. Where are we finding another centre mid from, basically, in the meantime? Between now and Saturday, where are we finding another mid?
You know what? I completely agree with you both, really, but it's just who do you put in, who do you use to bulk out that midfield, and it is hard. It is hard. Like I don't think you could just go with Tom Davies again, just straight off. I don't know whether it might be too much for him because another bad performance out of him, and I think that'll be him done. I don't mind the thought of playing the extra midfielder as Holgate, to be honest. I really don't. You know, I could see it helping. My main concern though is like he's got to. I just think if Richarlison's good enough to play the last 20 minutes the other day, he's got to start him, and I think he will. I think that for me that'd be Rondon's last hurrah, because if you won't play Richarlison on his own, but then if you play Rondon and Richarlison, who do you then take out?
I think personally, what he might do, I don't think he'll throw 3 in midfield, just because I don't think Gbamin's ready. If he was, that's probably your ideal third man. I think he might throw Holgate in, go to a 5 at the back, and then play Gray, Townsend, and Richarlison up top, with just Allen and Davis in the midfield. Yeah, I think he might just try and solidify it that way rather than going, you know, adding bodies, because I don't think we've got bodies in the midfield, unfortunately. You know,
we have dead bodies.
I keep looking at that Onyango playing for the under-21s and just hoping he gets some fitness, but I've never actually seen him play. So you're reaching desperation point then, don't you?
Absolutely. I'm sitting here smiling, and I'll see you all next week when we look back at this. But I don't reckon he'll drop Rondon. I just don't think he'll drop Rondon. I think if Richarlison comes in, it's probably at the expense of Gordon. Or as Mike said, shuffle it round. But I'll see you back here next week. But I just don't think he's going to drop Rondon. As much as the whole Twitter universe and everybody else is thinking he should, you know. I just think.
Do you not think though it might be a good idea? Obviously he's off the pace. Obviously he's not 100%. Might be a better idea not starting him and giving him the last 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like give him a fresh start when the other team are gassed a bit. Do you know what I mean? Because he can't do nothing at the start.
I'm chuckling because it looks like he needs 20 minutes just to get up to the pace of the game every week. So by the time he gets up to the pace of the game, the ref will be like, thanks very much. A good game, that, boys. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm laughing, but I'm crying inside. You know what I'm saying?
I know. I was just thinking when Mike was talking about slotting players in there, and I was thinking, do you know what? This is like being a Sunday League manager at 10 to 11 when you've only got 11 players and you're going, well, how are we going to work this? Like, hey, Fred, you're going to have to play right back today and you're going to have to play center. It really is getting a little bit like that at Everton, isn't it?
Rondon turns up 5 minutes before, hammered from town and goes straight on top.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, it is really hard, but one thing that did frustrate me at the game, not regards to the players on the pitch or the results, was some of the reactions of the fans, like sort of calling Rafa Benitez. Now, say what you want, but I completely agree with what you said. It's sort of like just dealing with what you've got. Now, I think the results have flattered us up to now. I think we have come short against Watford. I think we were unlucky against West Ham. But I think we're in for a real tough ride the next few weeks. And I don't think, regardless of the results, the next 4, 5, 6 games, it's going to be hard. Even if we get bad results, it will be hard for me to sort of pin the blame on Rafa, no matter which way they go. Because with the injuries they've got, the backup coming in to replace them, it's just not great. And you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Do you know what I mean? So, like, where would you stand on, the next few results don't go our way, potentially get spanked at the derby? You've got in the mix there, you've got Wolves, Spurs, City away, Brentford away, then Liverpool, Arsenal at home. That's 18 points. Can you, potentially, I think if we come away with 6 out of 18, that's a generous return based on how we're doing at the moment.
For me personally, I think sort of Mike opened up this session with sort of talking about it's the Everton way from a fan's perspective. I remember seeing this a year or so ago when we were struggling and we had, I think it was Chelsea, Arsenal, City, whatever. And we picked loads of points up because we stepped up for those kind of games. I think the last couple of games have been disappointing. I thought the performance of Brighton was superb. And I think
correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure we ended up with something like 14 out of 21 or something on that big run, something there. Or maybe like 13 out of 18 or something, which was really good. And it pushed us right up. I think it was just before Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah. And Everton have done that again. So, it's on paper, it's worrying. But after watching Everton for 50 odd years, God, I've seen it happen so many times, mate. So I won't be at all surprised that tactically you get to tune again out of people. But I don't know, what do you reckon, Mike?
Yeah, I think the way we're set up is probably all season has been counter-attacking, hasn't it? So coming up against the Watford team, who I know you thought they started quite well, Scott, and I think they did show little bits, but I think they did bring us down to their level to an extent because it was very nitty and gritty for the first half an hour. I thought it was just constantly breaking up play and things like that.
Yeah,
they couldn't really build up a head of steam because they didn't have an awful lot of quality across the pitch. So you never know. Maybe it might just be a bit of a, like the game against United where they huff and puff and then we can counter. The problem with that, obviously, you come back to the Decore situation, who has been so pivotal in just connecting the front line to the defence in the transition with constant running up and down. You can do that. Is there anybody that you can bring in, can Gabam and do it? Who knows? But you've got to find a way of keeping that threat whilst probably just sitting in a little bit deeper, to be honest. And that probably favours playing against better teams. So, a few surprises possibly, but, I'm not going into it expecting a great deal, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think we'll be all right. I mean, I know people are going, at least we got 14 points now. We only need another 16 or something. I'm not sure it's that desperation stakes. I think, and you hope now if the rumours are true and the Rodriguez move frees a bit of money up, that there's maybe a few sort of sensible signings that gives us just a little bit more strength. So, yeah, I think we'll come through it. The fixtures look awful on paper, Scott, you're right. And I think, some of our more pessimistic supporters will sort of have the worry beads out and whatever else, won't they? But it's, I don't know. I just think people have just got to get behind them. I mean, we sort of drift slightly, but what annoyed me on Saturday was the return of the sort of not really football savvy boo boys. There was sort of difficult there, and we had people around us. They were getting the ball. There was no options movement up front, nothing to do. So they played it back, and people are like booing and screaming. And you're going, have you actually ever played football? Do you understand the game? What do you want to do? Just launch it up, lose it, and it comes back again. I mean, you look, I think United yesterday, 2 of their goals was trying to overplay out the back, and Liverpool picked the pockets. Our fans sometimes just frustrate the life out of me. I get the boos at the end of the game, and even as uncomfortable as it was to watch some of our players sort of try and clap and then go all right and walk off. It was uncomfortable. But during the game, sometimes, and I apologise for not generalising, but the ignorance of some people in the ground is unbelievable to me.
No, it is. It's like you said, sometimes going back is your better option, because it's like the very basics. Like I know I always go back to grassroots because that's what I know. But we teach the kids a lot of the time, the best way for the opposition not to score is you've got the ball. You've got the ball and not scoring, are they? Do you know what I mean? And sometimes you have to go back to draw them in to create the space for you to then go forward. So the booing, mate, it's like I sit there myself and I think these people don't know football. They come the game, but they've never played, they've never coached. They just come and expect, and I think they have a lot of them have an unreal expectation as well, because they think that some players who do fill the gap should be perform as the ones who were injured, and there's levels to everything, and you can't expect the same level of performance from people who aren't playing regular. It's just you just can't.
What about you, Mike? What's it like where you sit?
Well, I'm in the parking, so it's pretty subdued, to be fair. But no, it's not a nice place to play football at the minute. I remember under Moyes, it was generally. The thing for me is we played a lot of different tactics over the last few years. Obviously, you had Martinez, where it's never going to work because the defence can't play out, and then all of a sudden we are great, and then we are awful. And he's sort of vilified the people who said you can't play out from the back. When Stones is telling the park end to calm down and stuff. But he's also doing a Cruyff turn on his own goal line. So, there's times where we might try and overplay, or we might try and we might apparently underplay. But I just think the general atmosphere of Goodison at the moment isn't conducive to being a home team. I don't think we produce much of an atmosphere. And we're very quick to turn when something goes wrong. I think that's the only time the only noise that we make generally as a crowd is when somebody on our team makes a mistake or the ref makes a mistake. That's when we make noise.
Yeah. See, I've got to be honest, like I sit in the lower Gwladys, and the start of that Watford game, where we sat, it was like a derby, and like the fella who sits next door but one to me, he was like, what's going on here? Like, why is the atmosphere like this? But it was only like that till Josh King scored on 13 minutes.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a reaction, wasn't there, from the game before, where everyone said the atmosphere was awful. Although that was 2 p.m. on a Sunday, which is never really conducive to a good atmosphere, is it, for a number of reasons. But in general, it's not. People go on about Goodison being a bear pit and stuff, and it can be. A couple of me red mates were at the 3-3 game, the Lukaku one. He said he's never had an atmosphere like it. But how many times in the last 10 years have we had an atmosphere like that? Probably that one, and a couple of.
It's better. It's better under the floodies.
Yeah.
It always is.
Every game rearranged for an 8:00 kickoff. Then that might.
Yeah, we should do, honestly.
We've got quite a few though now, haven't we? We don't play on a Saturday now. January.
Yeah.
So a few days off in the boozer before it.
Also, I don't know if this might interest you at all and how you feel about it. But a guy who sits next to me, he's obviously into his stats a lot more than me, but he calculated that without any cup games at all, we've got 53 games left at Goodison before the move.
Really?
Yeah. Which doesn't seem like a lot, to be fair.
No, it doesn't, does it? 20, what's it, about 24 average a season? 24, 48.
About 3 seasons.
Yeah. Probably not far wrong, is he?
No, it's about right.
Yeah. I mean, you see it moving, can't you? There's a fair few pictures going up now of the dredging going on. It certainly feels a lot closer than the other couple of failed attempts do. So it's in some ways, but yeah, it's still going to be difficult. But that's probably a bit further down the line. I just for now was another
get this team sorted.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Stop trying to bring some positivity into this, Scott.
Well, talking of positivity, do we dare make a prediction for Monday night? I'll start. It only seems right. I am going to go Everton 1-0. I think there's no way we can put in a weak performance at the end of the game like we have done tonight. And I'm going to shock you because we know Rafa's stubborn. 1-0 Everton, Rondon.
No, you didn't dreamland.
And I'm also now going to have to put a bet on that because Bucky's going to laugh at me again. You going next, Mike, or am I?
Yeah, go on. Why not? Get out the way. I'll go. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. Let's go 2-1. Let's give us the benefit of the doubt. I'll go one further and say a Rondon brace, if that helps, Scott.
Come on! He'll be watching at home saying there's no chance of that.
I'm probably a little, yeah. I think there'll be goals in it. I think Wolves concede. They proved that. They do concede, but they do score. So we will need to improve a little bit at the back. Saturday, sort of having chat with people, I sort of went, I think it could be like a 2-2 draw. So I'll probably stick with that. I think, it's Everton being Everton. I think we will score up there. We will get goals, but we need to tighten up. I know. You can see it, can't you? From a corner, through the zonal marking, boom, big red nose scores the equaliser. Proper Ald Everton grump, that, innit? But let's see what happens. But and we'll check back next week and see if he does drop Rondon or not as well. Which you two hope doesn't have any scoring for both of you.
Okay, guys. I think we're about that's it for time. Are we? I think that's about right.
I think we've bored people enough, haven't we?
Yeah, probably. So, guys, I just want to say thanks, Nick. It's been great to have you back.
Been a pleasure,
Mike,
guys.
It's a pleasure as always. And we'll see you next week. And hopefully we'll be saying Rondon scored 1 or 2. And we'll go from there.
Take care.
Thanks very much, guys. Good night.